Drop the knife.
I can't.
Drop the
I
knife.
can't. No, I can't. Look,
Drop
I didn't,
the knife.
Look, stop. I
Talk
didn't
to
mean
me.
it.
What's your name?
I didn't call you.
Talk to me, man. What's your name?
You go. No.
Charlie,
no.
I'm Pete. I'm here to talk to you and help you.
Name's Charlie.
You're gonna have beanbag, okay? Get online with him. Wait for my command. Get online. Move forward. Get online.
I just want you to talk to me.
Here we go.
No, look, I can't do it.
You're gonna stay lethal coverage. You're gonna stay lethal coverage. You're gonna stay on the beanbag. Wait for my command.
Not true. Not
You're gonna
true.
be hands, so go ahead and
Why are you doing
holster.
this?
You're gonna be hands, but stay verbal.
Charlie, put down the knife for me, okay? Charlie, talk to me, man. What's going on? Charlie.
Hudson Lopez.
Pete, stop. Pete.
Charlie, listen to me. We don't want to hurt you. We want to help.
Hudson, stay lethal covered. You're gonna be less lethal with your taser. Line up on that shop.
Don't worry about this. Talk to me.
No, you're
Nobody
lying.
wants to hurt you. We want to help you. Drop the knife, Charlie. Charlie, we want to help you. We don't want to hurt you. To put down the knife.
I can't do it.
We want to help you.
You can't put the knife down. No.
Yes, you can. Put it down. Put down the knife,
All right, guys,
Charlie.
listen. He's not
Can't
complying
do
with verbals, and he's getting more agitated. We're
I got
gonna
no choice.
beanbag him. Wait for
I
my
have a
command to
choice.
move.
I don't have a choice.
You ready? Beanbag.
Crisis scene situations are fluid, in which the actions of the officers are predicated on the actions of the suspect. This video provides a foundation of considerations that can be utilized in this type of situation. Someone has to take control of the scene. If a supervisor has not yet arrived, an officer should take the initiative and do so until relieved. A supervisor maintains overall control and responsibility. However, an officer with more experience and training with this type of incident could be allowed to maintain control over certain aspects, such as the REACT team. A supervisor should understand that their role in this type of situation is one that encompasses the overall big picture, and that they should not be conducting one task that prevents them from doing so. One person cannot do everything. For example, street sergeants are assigned beanbag shotguns so that they are available, but once arrived, they should immediately be assigned to an officer. Supervisors should delegate other tasks, such as assigning an officer or another supervisor to form a perimeter. Supervisors should know their officers and assign tasks accordingly. The 5 C's are guidelines that most officers associate with hostage barricade events. However, they also apply to crisis scenes such as the one presented here. They are containment, control, communicate, call SWAT, and create an immediate action plan. These are necessary steps to be taken that can happen simultaneously and not necessarily in the order they are listed. Containment is physical containment, to confine the incident to a specific area, as well as to keep other people out of it. Consideration should be taken to prevent crossfire, and it should be understood that it might move given the actions of a suspect in an open-air environment. Control is something that can be done with verbal communication. Have someone speak to the individual in a calm manner using first names to de-escalate the situation verbally. Communication with dispatch and other officers to advise them of the situation, including directives on perimeter, safe routes, and even telling more officers to refrain from showing up to the scene should be occurring. Creating a plan with a REACT team should also be a priority, prior to or concurrent with calling for specialized teams to assist. When forming a plan, a REACT team should be set up as a contingency to react to the overall situation and the actions of the suspect. This should be set by someone taking control of the scene, preferably a supervisor who gives specific tasks to individual officers who will operate as one team. This should include officers who will maintain lethal coverage and others on less lethal options, such as beanbag shotguns, tasers, or the bolo wrap. It should also designate officers who will go contact with the suspect should the situation allow for it. Verbal communication with the suspect should be obtained by one designated officer who is able to control themselves and attempt to obtain a calm dialogue with the suspect. Officers assigned to the inside perimeter should have lethal and non-lethal options. Multiple plans should be formed and implemented based upon the actions of the suspect. For example, if the suspect were to move towards another area of the perimeter, the non-lethal option already in place could be used on the suspect. If possible, time should be used to continuously assess and think about things prior to taking decisive action. Depending on the totality of circumstances, creating distance can provide more time for this assessment and more officers to arrive. Distance could also give time to set up react teams and contingency plans. Cover and concealment are also important considerations. Cover prevents potential weapons from striking you and is dependent on the threat. For example, a bullet will likely go through a vehicle, while a car could be considered cover from a knife or blunt object. Concealment merely hides your position, but does not prevent objects from going through it. All of these factors should be considered and acted upon if the overall circumstances allow for it to be done. Having Fox overhead can provide additional information about the bigger picture, including possible routes of escape for the suspect. Fox also records the incident, which allows for documentation of the event from an overhead vantage point. Canine can be used as a tool to make initial contact with the suspect if the situation allows, as well as providing a psychological deterrent for both resistance or attempts to evade. Shields are a potential tool that can be used to deflect objects as well as assist in pinning the suspect. Thinking outside of the box is always an option. Using a ladder to restrain the suspect from a distance, a pike pole to knock an object from his hand, or a vehicle to create a physical barrier between the officer and a suspect with a blunt or sharp object are all potentially viable resources. If the suspect has not sustained an injury, conduct a search and place him into a patrol vehicle as soon as possible. Do not forget to conduct another search with an officer uninvolved in any use of force to ensure that nothing is missed on his person prior to placing him into the car. If the suspect has sustained any injury, it is imperative that we treat it to the best of our abilities. This should preferably be done by an officer who was not involved in any use of force on the suspect. Previous training has outlined steps to be taken for trauma mitigation, such as applying pressure, placing a tourniquet on the appendage, or application of a chest seal. CPR should also be conducted if the situation both requires and allows for it. We should always remember that the ultimate goal is the preservation of life of all involved in every scene. What you are watching is a crisis scene that has a suicidal person armed with a knife.
Look, stop. I didn't mean it. I didn't pull you. Just, you go.
On any scene, it is very important to know your position in relation to the suspect and to each other. Look at the priority of fire issue demonstrated here in the video. If you find yourself in a bad position, it is important to move.
What's your name? Drop the knife.
Charlie.
Talk to me.
You're gonna
What's
have
your name?
beanbag, okay?
Someone has to take overall control of the scene. Here you see the sergeant arrive and immediately begin to assign tasks. She hands over a beanbag shotgun to one officer and places everyone on line with each other. She then moves to each officer and touches them while assigning their position in the team. She does this to ensure everyone understands their specific role: lethal, less lethal, hands, and the one person who should maintain verbal communication with the suspect.
Tell him to go away.
Charlie, talk to me, man. What's going on?
She needs to maintain situational awareness, as indicated here when she sees two officers in a bad position. She moves them into a better position that alleviates crossfire and assigns one of them to switch to a less lethal option on that side of the perimeter.
We don't want to
I
hurt you.
can't. I can't do it.
We want to
I
help you.
can't put the knife down. No.
Charlie.
Several plans should be made based upon the actions of the suspect. Those plans should also have contingency plans should they fail to produce the intended result. For example, if verbal communications fail, an attempt could be made to deploy a beanbag into the lower extremity of the suspect to remove the weapon from his hand. If this option works, a supervisor can give the command to move, at which point the entire team moves forward and arrests the suspect. It is extremely important that everyone on scene knows a less lethal option will be deployed to prevent sympathetic reflex. Here the suspect has dropped the knife, allowing for the team to go hands and handcuff him. The officers are in stool position and the supervisor has a taser in her hand, as the beanbag cannot be deployed closer than 21 feet. If the plan does not work, the team should remain in place and formulate another plan. It should also be noted that time is usually on our side. There is nothing rushing us to take action, if no one is harming themselves or others. If the suspect moves towards another area of the perimeter, less lethal options have already been established and can be used should they be required. Officers should remember that chokeholds are prohibited. These events have too many variables to dictate every action that an officer should take. Utilize the tools in this video and your own critical thinking skills to adapt to your specific incident. The bottom line is that we maximize the potential for everyone to go home safe.